Welcome to Seven and a Half Questions, an interview series inspired by the Seven and a Half Law from Being John Malkovich, the movie. Yes, that's right, the movie. And like in the movie, we're going to dive into somebody's mind for a brief time and have them share some of the moments of inspiration, connectedness, and nourishing tips, and a little bit about their COVID experience as well. Today, I have one of my dearest friends, Kim, who is in Melbourne and experiencing one of the strictest lockdowns in the world and one of the longest, and she's working from home. Kim, thanks so much for joining. Thanks for being here. So can you share a little bit about what it's been like for you in Melbourne during this time?
Thanks so much, Anna. Thanks for having me. This is such a great idea. I'm so glad to be part of this. So in terms of the COVID experience here in Melbourne, as you say, it's been 6 months. It's been such a long time to be locked down, and we've experienced varying degrees of severity in the restrictions. And I'm talking as somebody who is working, who's got a partner and a great social network. And, you know, I'm finding it so unsettling. So, I mean, obviously, with everything that we're reading and seeing in the news, this is taking its toll on so many people, their livelihoods, their way of life. People aren't able to work, and, you know, certain support that they're getting from the government is waning, and it's like people are sort of really unsure about when things will go back to normal and how they can pick up what's been sort of shattered and destroyed by this virus in a way. I mean, it's an understatement to say this is such a full-on challenging time for people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think a lot of it has been to do with the duration, obviously, but the uncertainty of it all has really affected people's mental health. And when we saw that, we went into the lockdown and the panic buying that ensued, and, I mean, now sort of the last steps of getting to the lockdown, a lot of people are feeling that they want to, you know, resume what they can in normal life, a post-COVID normal.
Yeah, so I identify with that. It felt like this has been going on for such a long time, and we really don't know when it's going to end at this stage. And the hardest thing is that, yes, we're not able to see friends, we're not able to see family, and that's really having, you know, a mental impact on many of us, right? So it's tough. I mean, obviously, this is, you know, a really, really terrible time for the world. But do you think in the midst of this terrible time, there are positive aspects that are coming out?
So I think a positive thing that's come out of this is my self-reflection personally, in terms of as a consumer making more ethical and mindful choices. So, you know, I'm really thinking about where I put my money this time. In terms of my experience, I've recently bought some books online, and I've immediately regretted that decision, as I bought them from an online distributor, not an independent retailer that has bookstores throughout Melbourne. And I've regretted that because I've just thought, like, where am I putting my money and what am I supporting? And, you know, when we come out of lockdown, are we going to have fewer bookstores as a result because they haven't been supported enough, you know? So it's like, I know going forward, I have to really think about that. And I'm going to be buying from stores that I can physically visit in Melbourne. There's bookstores that I love as well. Like, I guess I didn't think deeply in the moment.
Yeah. And I love that because there's such important little decisions that we take for granted. And, you know, and sometimes it's just applying just a little bit more thought about, like, who are we supporting? What's, you know, if we're supporting like companies like Amazon, does that mean a smaller business is going to go out of business potentially, you know, which is really kind of heartbreaking, right? And so I love that we're kind of like thinking a little bit more about these everyday decisions. I do feel like there's so much like positive aspects that are coming out, you know, about from this as well, like in terms of like the fashion industry, what's happening there, you know, like a lot of fashion brands are making a stance of being more, you know, conscientious, being more sustainable. Gucci has recently taken responsibility, saying, you know, we've been incredibly reckless, the fashion industry, and almighty, and we haven't been one with nature, and, you know, just been overproducing. And they've actually made a commitment to going down from 5 fashion shows to 2 fashion shows a year, which is a massive thing for them to have made, because they're doing it at the expense of their revenue. And hopefully, like a lot of other smaller fashion companies, you know, will see that as a really example of what, you know, of how ethical, you know, and mindful the fashion industry has to be. So I'm really looking forward to how that's going to trickle down. What are you looking forward to the most post-COVID?
Oh my gosh, I'm looking forward to, I mean, obviously seeing my friends and family and spending time with them and enjoying the city here in Melbourne. So going out for food and live music. I'm also looking forward to the gym. I know that's such a minor thing, but I think it's hard when you've been restricted to the exercise that you can do through the lockdown and living in an apartment. That's certainly something that I'm really looking forward to. But absolutely catching up with friends and like simple things like going out for a meal or going to a bar and getting a drink. Yeah.
Yeah, I so hear on that. It's really the little things. It's not even the big things like traveling, like
Yes.
on the agenda. Like you think, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, I think we all miss traveling, right? But it's just the little things that I think we now suddenly really, really value, like sitting down at a coffee shop or going to a bar and having a drink or a restaurant.
Absolutely. I know we just like we don't have our aim very high. We're just sort of like we'll just settle for this. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And are you reading or watching anything that's having an impact on you at the moment?
There's a lot that I'm consuming, watching and reading right now, but one book that's really stood out to me, a book called Phosphorescence by Julia Baird. She's an Australian author, and I just love that book so much, and I'm so grateful to my colleague Elise for recommending it to me. It was launched at such a perfect time. It was launched in March, just as we were going into lockdown, and in fact, the full title of the book is Phosphorescence on Awe, Wonder, and Things That Sustain You When the World Goes Dark. It is so beautiful.
Perfect title.
Yeah, it's a perfect title for going into a pandemic lockdown. And she talks about things like in each chapter, I just felt really nourishing to my soul, and a range of things to do with, you know, honoring and valuing the environment and enjoyment of the environment and honoring yourself and being true to yourself and connection with friends, loved ones. You know, he talks about things like how fleeting moments in your life can be just so transformational. Interactions with people, you know, just honouring things that can be quite temporary and just the flow of life. And I think that was just lots of vignettes of beautiful stories of Julia's life, I suppose, that really help you think about how you can put things into perspective and take a lot of the good, even if, you know, the whole world goes dark. There are things that you can find inspiration and energy and light from. So I think phosphorescence, the word itself, she talks about how that's like the luminescent plankton in the water. So for instance, if you were going to Southern California or North Central Coast, New South Wales in Australia, it's the glowing lights in the moonlight of the water. Yeah. And it's so beautiful. So it's sort of taking that analogy and analogous to our lives, the light that you can see.
I love that. It's such a beautiful book. And you gave that book for my birthday as a gift, and I love that book so much as well. I so recommend for anyone who's looking for something uplifting during this time, because it is just that perfect book for that. Thanks so much for that. That's such a good book. So what are you learning about yourself at the moment? Or what have you learned about yourself during this time?
I think for me, one of the greatest learnings, and it's taken this whole duration of 6 months to kind of figure this out, so it's not, but it's pretty much, I've had to make the distinction between, with this pandemic, obviously there's so much that I can't control, and it's like about shifting my focus to what I can control, and that sounds so straightforward and simple, but I just think that I've been sort of mindlessly, you know, streaming things and just sort of trying to dissociate from the fact that we're in a pandemic lockdown, rather than having a very active approach to what I can control and what I can do, you know.
Yeah, that's so great, because you know, we're so used to controlling things, and it's so actually really difficult for us right now to not be able to control so much. of what we're used to. So are there things right now that you are controlling, or wanting to control, or you can control in a kind of more positive way that's making you, a little bit happier?
Um, yeah, so I think for me, it's sort of, as I say, like trying not to just veg out and stream. Like I'm wanting to read more books and plan my life and think about what my goals are and not let them just sort of fall by the wayside by thinking I'm in a lockdown now. There's nothing I can really do about it. So it's like carving out the space to be really conscious about things that will uplift me and keep me excited about what life has to offer beyond this lockdown. So in terms of, what I'd like to achieve at work or what I'd like to achieve through fitness, it's just getting those ideas back to the forefront of my mind, because for personally, and it may not be the same for everyone else, but I sort of just forgot about all of that and I just was like in survival mode. But I think but that's the reminder. That's what I've had to sort of realize is like, I don't have to forget about all these things that, make me me and make me excited about my life. It's sort of like bringing that to the fore again, which again sounds simple, but
but that's so effective. I love that. It's so there's so much power that lies there, in these little simple decisions that we make on a daily basis that we forget about or just don't think about that much. So that's such good advice. Thanks so much for that. And what would be one thing that you could suggest for us to do this week that we might find nourishing?
So for me, I think there's a few things that I've been doing is getting out and getting some fresh air and sunshine where I can. It's spring here in Melbourne, so the weather's getting better and better. I listen to music a lot, and I would also recommend moving. So I think a few days ago, my partner and I just started dancing. Like we just had a dance session to a lot of songs, and that was just fun because it just reinvigorates you and gives you, a new energy. Like, so equally, if you can exercise, do that. But dancing is it's different, it sort of really moves the energy through you.
It's dancing is one of those things that we often think, oh wait, it's something we do when we go out, but it's something that we can all do at home. And actually I was doing the same thing because I was in the midst of moving houses, just moved to places at the moment, and I knew I had a really big day ahead of me, really stressful, and I put on some music and I did some dancing, and it did shift my energy for the day. I did feel like good going into the day, knowing it's going to be like I'm going to be out there until like 9-10, moving furniture, blah blah blah, but it does shift your energy. So I think it's a really good tip for us to remember. We're up to our last question, 7.5 questions. So do you have a quote or a joke that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really short and sweet quote, and I think that's the beauty of it. So this is a quote by Tan France, and I'm not sure if he originally coined it, but Tan France being one of the members of the new iteration of the Queer Eye, and he is responsible for styling. So he's done a masterclass recently teaching styling, and the last words he says, "Be the reason that you're happy." And it just really, as I say, it's so simple and so elegant, but it really just hit the nail on the head at the end of his masterclass, which is just teaching you ways to uplift yourself through style, to make conscious choices to make yourself happy for when you present yourself to the world, and what that can bring for you. So I found it really empowering as well. It's like putting so much of that power to be happy on you and helping you to recognize that.
Right. And it's so important to remember that we are all responsible for our own happiness, and that, when we do give that power away to somebody else, like our partner or children, then they decide when you're happy. And, like, why would you want to do that? And it reminds me of something that Oprah talked about, is like, you have to really pay attention to the things that make you feel energized and connected and stimulated, because those things are very much aligned to the things that, you feel happy. So thanks so much for chatting with me and sharing tips and your moments of inspiration, and giving us some nourishing tips, and going out and doing some dancing and shifting our energy. And I can't wait to catch up with you properly.
Likewise, babe. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you. I love you.
I love you.